Part 38. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 371. According to the Empire's predictions, the alien existence should not be wiped out so easily. It's a completely troubled time right now. I don't know what direction the Empire will take in the future. That's why I'm informing you of the news. I hope you can prepare early. If the future is unstoppable, I hope you can protect me once. If you go anywhere, I hope you can take me and my son with you. Of course I am willing to pay a very high price, such as gold, weapons, and supplies. When Lin Yi heard this, his eyes lit up slightly. He naturally saw old Wei's income, not to mention he had tens of thousands of gold coins at home. With such a rich family fortune, if he really used part of it, his income would not be small. Thinking of this, he was filled with joy. Okay, I know the news. If something really happens, you can come to me. After hanging up the phone, Ji Yi fell into deep thought. Based on the weapon effects described by the other party, he already knew what the Red Lotus Empire was sending out. Have nuclear weapons been developed? But looking at the power of this nuclear weapon, it is not just developed, but the product of many generations of optimization. In other words, the empire is hidden very deep. Thinking of this, his eyes couldn't help but show a trace of solemnity. This is really interesting. So what is the purpose of the Red Lotus Empire using this destructive weapon so readily this time? Since we have predicted that those alien beings will not disappear so easily, is there any point in using such a destructive weapon from the beginning? Numerous questions flashed through Lin Yi's mind, and he soon thought of a possibility. Deterrence. In the current situation, the sect appears, and the forces on the weird side are also restless. And the Red Lotus Empire doesn't seem to have any decisive upper-level power. So an absolute force is needed to deter them. These weird existences seem to have taken the lead again. It seems that the Empire has been forced into a corner and has no choice, so it will reveal such a weapon of mass destruction. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but shook his head. National affairs have nothing to do with me. If the sky falls, there will be a taller one. I'd better continue to do my business. The next step is to promote lifespan first. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but take out a crystal white bead from his arms. This is the lifespan obtained from the first exchange, which is 10 years. Let's go to the hospital tomorrow to see if there is anyone who wants to prolong their life. While he was thinking, several plates of delicious dinner were served on the table. The mellow red wine and the alluring aroma of beef will make people want to eat. After a hearty meal, Lin Yi returned to his room and began to practice. At this time, outside the Wanchaiwu, on the highest floor of a hotel, a pair of eyes were looking in the direction of the Wanchaiwu. The owner of these eyes was none other than Xin Yueze. The last time he was severely injured at Lin Yi's hands, he had always remembered it in his heart. At this time, his injuries had been repaired, and he even went one step further, opening the door to the ghost and immortal path at the critical moment of life and death. Since the last Third World change, he has been thinking about how to get revenge. He was not afraid of Lin Yi himself, but his four-headed summons were very dangerous things. Lin Yi carries these summons with him wherever he goes. If he takes action rashly, he will immediately become the target of siege. The last time he was able to escape, he had a mysterious talisman, which was his secret treasure, so he could escape Lin Yi's pursuit. But that talisman was a one-time use, and he didn't have such a thing now. If he falls into the same situation as last time, what awaits him will not be a good outcome. So even though he had returned to Red Lotus City and monitored Lin Yi for 2 or 3 days, he still didn't take action. He is looking for a good opportunity, and at the same time he is preparing and arranging. He has clearly seen that if you want to kill the master of the House of Everything, you must be fully prepared. After this period of observation, he could confirm that Lin Yi had completely entered the third level of the immortal Dao. And through his observation, he could find that Lin Yi's power was not just about his realm. The intensity of Lin Yi's energy was unprecedentedly powerful, even surpassing the most powerful human immortal master in the Kishan Xie sect. If he hadn't inherited the secret method and could see through the fluctuations of essence in Lin Yi's body, he wouldn't have been able to discover the secret. It was precisely because he saw the problem here that he did not take action directly. His eyes were looking in the direction of Wanchaiwu, and he didn't know when two figures appeared in his room. One of these two people was shrouded in black robes, and the other was shrouded in white robes, and their whole bodies were filled with huge murderous aura. Their faces were covered by their robes, and their true faces could not be seen clearly. "Are you the employer?" Xuanhuan turned around and looked at the two of them, a cold light flashing in his eyes. The number one killer on the list, black and white and impermanent. The mysterious man in white robe whispered, "Yes, I am Bai Vuchang, and this is He Vuchang." Star. Xuanhuan looked at the two men and nodded slightly, a mysterious light flashed in his eyes. In an instant, he captured the huge power fluctuations in the two people's bodies, although it was only a hazy outline. But it is also certain that these two people will not be worse than him. And there is a strange power fluctuation permeating these two people, which is very powerful. The first on the killer list, the mysterious black and white impermanence, has accepted countless missions. No one has seen their true faces, but they have never failed to assassinate their targets. Xuanhuan spent a lot of money to find these two top killers for revenge. A gentleman does not stand on a dangerous wall. After suffering a big loss at the hands of Lin Yi, he has been 12 points vigilant against this unknown enemy. These black and white evil spirits are not just pawns, but also bait. He wants to use these two people to test out all of Lin Yi's methods, and then make targeted arrangements for Lin Yi. This is called stirring up trouble, knowing yourself and the enemy, and finally ambushing from all sides. Of course, it would be better if Lin Yi died in the hands of the black and white impermanence, which can greatly save his time and energy. Xuanhuan smiled slightly, and 2 bottles of pills appeared in his hand. This is the spiritual transformation pill, which can help beings at the level of the human immortal path to concentrate a little bit of spirit, and there is a 30% chance of success. As long as you concentrate a little bit of spirit and get the method of the ghost immortal path, you can start to impact the realm of the ghost immortal path. "I'll pay half of these 2 bottles of pills first," he said as he threw the pill to Bai Vuchang. After Bai Vuchang took the pill, he opened it and saw a golden pill lying quietly inside. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 372. A strange medicinal fragrance wafted out, which instantly refreshed him. He immediately knew that this was the real thing, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. Quick talk, where is the target?" Xuanhuan turned his head and looked in the direction of the Wanchaiwu outside the French window, pointing at it. "It's right there, a coffee shop called Wanchaiwu, and the owner is your target. His name is Lin Yi. I think you should have heard of this person. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow Method Ji Wu." The black impermanence among the black and white impermanence said coldly, "I have heard of this person. This person is not easy to mess with. According to our information, he has at least 4 summons at the level of human immortals. And he himself has already entered the level of human immortals. And his 4 summons are all strange existences, with many changes. It is not easy to deal with them." Xuanhuan smiled slightly when he heard this. Of course it is not easy, otherwise how can it be worth 2 Shenhua pills? But there is one thing I want to remind you, your information has been encountered. This Lin Yi has entered the 3rd level of human immortals. If you want to kill him, you may have to spend a little more effort. When the black and white impermanence heard this, their momentum condensed slightly, and Lin Yi's cultivation gave them some pressure. Bai Vuchang sneered, "Don't worry, no one has ever survived in our hands. We will find a way to deal with this person within a week." You prepare the other half of the reward and wait quietly for good news. Xinyu, as he heard the two people's assurances, nodded with satisfaction, and smiled slightly. Okay, then I will wait and see how powerful the legendary black and white impermanence is. I will live here during this period. If you complete the task, come to me. The black and white impermanence nodded, and then a strange shadow appeared on them, and they disappeared in the hotel in the next moment. Watching the two leave, Sinuez's eyes showed a hint of cold light. You are just a bait, help me lead out his bait. At this time, a gloomy sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth, as if there was a deeper conspiracy. This is a good place. I will let you know what is called the evil section. Hee, a cold laugh filled the whole room. In the Wanchaiwu, Lin Yi had finished practicing for several hours, and his mind and body had recovered to the most perfect state. Now, strange beings descended almost every day in the Wanchaiwu. Although there were not as many as those descended in the first few days of the Third World Change, there were at least one or two strange beings of the human immortal level every day. These strange beings would be killed by Ling Ai with all his strength as soon as they appeared. At this time, he had completed the fourth lotus seal method, and at the same time ignited a hand seal brilliance. Feeling the surging energy in his body, a faint light flashed in his eyes. The impact on the ghost immortal path should be put on the agenda as soon as possible, but the most important thing is the problem of cultivation. In this Honglian province, the sects closest to Honglian city seem to be Honglian Xianmen and Beihuasian Zone. The information about these sects has been leaked on the internet, and both good and evil are marked. However, the people in the Honglian world now do not have the ancient distinction between good and evil. For them, there is only a distinction between cultivation methods. And in their understanding, the so-called good and evil are just because of the differences in cultivation methods. The so-called evil ways and demon ways are nothing more than the fact that the progress of the skills is too fast, or that some cruel means are used, the progress is too radical, etc. But these skills are acceptable to the current Red Lotus realm. As long as humans are not used directly for training, there is no problem. So the martial arts halls of the evil ways and demon ways are also springing up everywhere in the Red Lotus realm. Among them, the Red Lotus Immortal sect sounds like a righteous sect, but it is actually a veritable demon sect. The method of cultivation in this sect is very domineering. It is said that it is to draw the power of the Red Lotus Sun to carry out later cultivation. But if it is just like this sect should be a righteous sect, because the power of the sun is magnificent and upright. How can it be classified as an evil way? But in the end, the reason why the Red Lotus Immortal sect was classified as a demon is that the power of the Red Lotus Sun is too brutal. Not to mention humans, even steel, which condenses too much sun power, will be burned to ashes by the violent power. In order to neutralize the violent power of the sun, this sect adopted a very cruel method. That is to gather blood to baptize the power, which must be done every once in a while, and it will consume a lot of blood. However, this blood can be from animals or humans, and the best effect is human blood. The secret seems to be to tame the violent power through the weak spirituality contained in the blood. And this seems to continue until the breakthrough of the Ghost Fairy Way. Therefore, every person in the Red Lotus Immortal sect will cause countless killings, so this sect will be classified as the Devil Way. And because of the reason for the practice, the population of this sect is not prosperous, and it seems that there are only a dozen people in the entire sect. But these people are extremely powerful, and no one dares to provoke them at will. The Red Lotus Immortal sect has the fewest martial arts halls among all the sects, with only one, which is located in the Red Lotus City. It is called the Immortal Sect Martial Arts Hall. Lin Yi quickly locked his target on this sect, because the one sitting in the Red Lotus City Martial Arts Hall seemed to be a master of the Ghost Immortal Dao. Thinking of this, he looked at the time and left the summoning picture book to Brandy. "Manager, are you going out so late?" Brandy asked with some concern. Lin Yi glanced at him and said, "There are you, Absinthe, Ford, and whiskey in the store, as well as the summoning picture book I left for you. Your strength is enough to deal with the strange existence that appears late at night. You have to start to be independent. I may not be in the store every time." Brandy heard this and took a deep breath. "Manager, I will work hard." Looking at Brandy with a firm look in his eyes, Lin Yi nodded slightly. "I will come back as soon as possible. Take care of the store." As he said that, he had already opened the door and quietly left alone. He was very fast and quickly disappeared on the street outside the Wanqi house. Ling Yi's departure obviously attracted the attention of some people. Two figures, one black and one white, hung behind him like shadows. Lin Yi didn't realize that someone was following him at all. He rushed straight towards the direction of the Xuanhuan martial arts hall. Generally speaking, people who practice martial arts practice at night, and now is the best time to peek at the Taoism. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 373. About 10 minutes later, Lin Yi came to the outside of Xuanhuan Martial Arts Hall quietly. The light of the true destiny flashed in his eyes, and he saw through the situation of the entire martial arts hall in an instant. There was only one person inside, and his whole body was emitting a light like the sun, and the blood-red essence in his body was pure and restrained. Lin Yi saw the target, and the boundless light flashed around him. The next moment he walked in, stepped under the ground, and completely disappeared. After Hibai Vuchain came here, he stopped and they were a little strange. Completely lost the trace of Lin Yi, their eyes swept around. They were just a few seconds late, and they completely lost control of Lin Yi's trace. Only to hear Bai Vuchain's voice whispered in He Vuchain's ear, "What's going on? Where did this guy go? Do you think he went into this martial arts hall?" Bai Vuchain looked at the plaque that had nothing to do with Xuanhuan, thought about it, shook his head and said, "I don't know, but I've heard of the Xuanhuan martial arts school. It's the Honglian Xuanhuan, a martial arts school opened in Honglian City. It is said that the sect is one of the best sects in the magic way, with great strength and taking the all-elite route. We should not provoke this kind of sect casually. Let's wait outside first. If Lin Yi really comes out of this martial arts school, I'm afraid we have to go back and report the situation to that person first. If the matter is related to the sect, 2 bottles of Huashan pills are not enough for us to take action. We may not be able to withstand the danger behind it. The black and white impermanents are not fools." The sect suddenly appeared, and even the Honglian Empire had to compromise and let them appear in the Honglian Empire openly. Although the 2 of them are ranked first in the killer rankings, compared with the Honglian Empire, it is the gap between an ant and the earth. And the sect that even the Honglian Empire has to compromise, they don't think they are qualified to provoke. But out of professional ethics, they still have to investigate it first. At this time, inside the Xuanhuan martial arts hall, Lin Yi had quietly arrived at the underground where the Xuanhuan person who was in charge of the martial arts hall was. At this time, he had no breath in his body after performing the True Destiny Unlimited, as if he did not exist in this world. He was hiding underground, and there was a secret room above his head. The mysterious Red Lotus Xuanhuan person was completely immersed in cultivation. Lin Yi's eyes slowly looked at this person, and the brilliance of the True Destiny Daija bloomed to the extreme. Then everything in the secret room where this person was taken in by him. This person's body was flowing with a domineering power, as hot as the sun in the Red Lotus realm. At this time, the essence in the other person's body was running along a wonderful trajectory. And this movement formed a wonderful force field, surging in the other person's body. This force field generated a force field suction at the head of this person, sucking something in the body into the head bit by bit. His eyes caught the other person's head, and in a hazy state, an illusory figure was sitting cross-legged. At the center of the figure was a sun from the Red Lotus realm. Countless information gathered from his eyes and condensed in his mind. Under the power of the divine seal of the true fate Daoji, a strange picture was automatically drawn and appeared in his consciousness. It was a huge pattern, with a person sitting cross-legged under the sun, and countless sun rays flowed and injected into the person's body. Then these forces continued to flow along the meridians in the person's body, producing a wonderful force field that covered the person's entire body. In the person's mind, a tiny sun appeared. In the body covered by the force field, countless points of light gathered towards the tiny sun. As the light spots in the sun absorbed more and more, a tiny figure gradually appeared and flickered in the sun. As time passed, the figure continued to grow and included the tiny sun. Lin Yi understood the full secret of this painting. This is a method to the Ghost Immortal Road. The method of cultivating the spirit will eventually cultivate 3 souls and 7 spirits and condense the soul. Lin Yi, who had come into contact with the soul, immediately knew what the soul was. The soul is the spiritual product that the cultivator extracts from his body, which eventually softens his will. Once the soul is condensed, it will directly delay the dissipation of the soul, thereby extending human life in disguise. At this time, he suddenly understood the secret of the cultivation path. The human immortal path is the cultivation of the body, and the ghost immortal path is the cultivation of the soul. After the cultivation of the human immortal path is completed, the life can reach 150 years old, which is a life limit. After reaching this age, the body of the human immortal master will not die. What dies is their soul and spirit, which will dissipate and weaken in the long river of time. But after the ghost immortal path condenses the soul, it will slow down the dissipation of the soul, and the final result is that human life will continue to extend. Until the human body reaches its physical limit, the cultivator will die. After losing the body, the soul cultivated by the cultivator will die again. The two are interdependent. As long as there is a problem on one side, it will lead to the final death of mankind. Even at this moment, Lin Yi saw the path after the ghost immortal path. It must be the combination of soul and body, producing some unknown changes, to break through the shackles of death. This is the ultimate secret of the cultivation path, the path to immortality. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind in an instant. At this moment, he suddenly felt a little shaken, and a feeling of dizziness surged from his heart. He immediately knew that it was not good. This was the reaction of excessive consumption of spiritual waves. Without any hesitation, he immediately rushed to the outside of the martial arts hall. He did not leave from the main gate, but rose from the ground behind the martial arts hall. After appearing in the air, he immediately took a deep breath. At the same time, he ended his true destiny, and his essence in his body circulated, all his pores closed, and not a trace of breath leaked. He did not forget that there was a master of the ghost fairy level in this Xuanhuan martial arts hall. If the chi is exposed casually, it may attract other people's attention. After all, the other party is in a state of meditation, and he is naturally more vigilant to the outside world. Once there is a slight disturbance, he will wake up immediately. Lin Yi did not stay here for long, and returned to the direction of the Wanchaiwu in a flash. It is natural to go back and study the things carefully after getting them. However, the moment he appeared, the black and white impermanents who had been in front of the Xuanhuan martial arts hall seemed to have noticed something. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 374. Just listen to Hava Chain whisper, that person appeared, behind the Xuanhuan martial arts hall. It looks like he's walking back. He is indeed related to the section. What should I do? Should I stop him or go see the employer first? Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. Hava Chain thought for a while and said, this matter is a bit strange. Let's be cautious. Let's go see the employer first and explain the situation. And if the employer deliberately concealed this from us, it would be a shame. He Vuchang also nodded, I hope he didn't lie to me, otherwise he is looking for death. Black and White Vuchang did not follow Ling Yi, but quickly returned to the hotel where Xuanhuan was. At this time, Xuanhuan was sitting facing the moon, slowly moving the essence in his body, absorbing the negative energy that filled the sky. A looming figure in his mind was absorbing the soul matter in his body through a mysterious force field. Suddenly he stopped practicing and looked behind him. Black and White Vuchang didn't know when he came to his room again. You two, what's going on? Have you completed the mission? He only heard Bai Vuchang's voice ringing in his ears, there seems to be something wrong with this supernatural being. He has something to do with the sect, but you didn't tell me. Hearing this, Xuanhuan was a little confused, how can I say this? He just left the Wanchaiwu View, and we followed him. Guess where we saw him go? Xuanhuan shook his head and said, how do I know this? Don't be pretentious and tell me directly. Only then will I know what happened. Bai Vuchang thought for a while, we saw him going to the Xuanhuan martial arts school. He stayed for about 10 minutes and then left from behind the martial arts school. Going to the Xuanhuan martial arts school late at night obviously has an ulterior relationship with this section. If we act rashly, I'm afraid we will offend this mysterious section. Now, employer, do you have anything to say to us? We didn't listen to you at all about this news. Xuanhuan was slightly startled when he heard this, why is Lin Yishan going to the Xuanhuan martial arts school in the middle of the night? Could it be? For a moment he seemed to think of something. He went to learn the exercises secretly. The law of heaven, earth, universe, and everything. He is going to steal the cultivation method of Ghost Immortal Dao in order to break through the current realm. In an instant, Xuanhuan realized what Lin Yi was doing. At the same time, he became more and more certain that Lin Yi had obtained the legendary method. Otherwise, it would be impossible to grow to where he is now in such a short period of time. The method of changing skills at will can only be achieved by the legendary method. Thinking of this, there was an indescribable solemnity in his eyes, and at the same time there was a hint of anxiety. Damn it, this guy is progressing too fast. If I don't take him down, I'm afraid I won't have a chance. At that time, I can only spread the news throughout the entire spiritual path. Cause other people's greed and kill them, and never allow them to continue to grow. In an instant, Xuanhuan had made up his mind. Even if he couldn't get the Dharma of heaven, earth, universe, and everything in the end, he would still let Lin Yi die. Otherwise, he will leave an unimaginable huge hidden danger. If he is not careful, he will end up getting burned in the future. At this time, Black and White Vuchang looked at Xuanhuan who was in a daze and looked at each other. They knew what the other must be thinking. Just listen to Bai Vuchang's low voice, this employer, it seems that you already know something. Xuanhuan looked at Black and White Vuchang and smiled slightly, don't worry, I know why he went to Xuanhuan Martial Arts Hall. I can tell you 100% that he has nothing to do with Xuanhuan Martial Arts School. He had other purposes for going there. You can continue your mission. When He Vuchang heard this, he looked at each other, and then He Vuchang said, when we accept a task, we usually ask the employer to provide complete information. If the information you provide is wrong, once we discover it, or if trouble eventually comes to our door, we will report it to you without hesitation. I hope you understand this. Xuanhuan smiled slightly and said, you too can rest assured that if something goes wrong, you can reveal my information. I hope you can solve him as soon as possible and bring him to me. After hearing the guarantee from Xuanhuan, Bai Vuchang nodded and said, since it comes to this, we believe in your guarantee. It's still the same time. Within a week, we will get rid of this person and bring him to you. Xuanhuan nodded, just break the limbs and use up the martial arts. Just leave a breath. Black and white Vuchain nodded, and then disappeared here. Xuanhuan was standing in front of the floor-to-ceiling window, staring at Wan Chaiwu, not knowing what he was thinking in his eyes. At this time, Lin Yi had already returned to the Wanqi house, and it was almost 12 o'clock. In the lobby, Absinthe and the other three were fighting against the landlord. Their faces were all filled with happy smiles, especially Absinthe, who won this round, with smiles in his eyes. Ji Yi glanced at them and returned to his bedroom. The three of them saw that Lin Yi did not greet them, so they immersed themselves in their own fun. Lin Yi sat cross-legged on his bed, and fell into a faint contemplation. A mysterious pattern flashed in his consciousness. Then he began to try. First, the power of the true destiny began to operate, and the power of his whole body turned into the power of the ghost immortal master in the Xuanhuan martial arts hall in an instant. In an instant, he became like a big sun, and endless red light permeated from his body. At the same time, the power of the true destiny was activated, and the energy circulation in his body also turned into the mysterious technique he had just peeked at. Soon, a mysterious force field appeared at this moment, and at the same time he felt a scorching heat in his brain. The trace of spirit he produced by swallowing spiritual matter underwent mysterious changes in this scorching heat. This trace of spirit seemed to be stimulated and began to tremble slowly. Lin Yi's heart moved, and this trace of spirit suddenly shrank and turned into a point. The next moment, this point began to emit a faint red light. Lin Yi imagined in his mind that the spirit had turned into a red lotus sun. Then a little bit of soul matter in his body diffused out from every corner of his body. Following the direction of the force field, it rushed to a point of red light of the sun deep in his brain. This red light of the sun was like a huge furnace, swallowing up all the mysterious soul matter. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 375. At this moment, Lin Yi felt that his spirit was growing rapidly. An indescribable feeling of comfort permeated from his heart. He felt that his spirit seemed to be becoming fuller, as if there was another self in his body. And this self seemed to be able to leave his shell and body at any time. This was a very wonderful feeling, as if there was another self. However, this feeling did not last long. After about a few minutes, the spirit in his mind no longer grew. No more soul matter flowed from his body into the small sun. At this time, an illusory figure appeared in the center of the sun. This figure was very small. But it had a nose and eyes, and looked exactly like Lin Yi. At this time, Lin Yi's spirit was floating and entered this figure. He saw a bright red world. Looking down at his hands, it was illusory and hazy, without clothes. Infinite red light permeated from his body, illusory and illuminating this space. Thinking, Lin Yi knew where he was now. Is this the spiritual world? At this time, he looked up, where there was a huge green sphere. In the sphere, 3 green light spots were visible to the naked eye, rotating with each other in a mysterious trajectory. Waves of spiritual waves surged in it. A lotus floated in another direction, and at this time, this handprint lotus had been lit up with the light of a lotus handprint. As soon as his mind moved, this handprint lotus floated towards Lin Yi. The next moment, Lin Yi sat on this lotus. This lotus was like a huge platform for him, and his tiny body was like an ant on this platform. Feeling his current wonderful state, Lin Yi was thoughtful. The so-called ghost immortal Dao is the spiritual practice, which refines the soul into a spirit, thus producing a certain qualitative change. But today I practiced for about an hour, and it seems that I have extracted all the soul substances in my body. But my current state does not look like I have successfully cultivated a spirit. It seems that I have to continue to practice to know what is going on. Or is there an upper limit to the soul substances that can be extracted from the body every day? Lin Yi was puzzled and slowly stopped the operation of the technique. At this time, with the disappearance of the mysterious force field, the small sun in Lin Yi's consciousness also slowly dimmed. Only a small illusory figure was left sitting on the lotus. Maybe I can get some information about the ghost immortal Dao from Sakuramiya Shirley or the man in black. Feeling the figure deep in his consciousness, Lin Yi had a feeling that it was there and not there. It seemed that as long as he wanted, this figure could leave his body. But he also had a hunch that this would be a very dangerous behavior. Let's wait until this soul thing becomes stronger. Thinking of this, a faint cold light appeared in his eyes. Goo goo goo. The classical clock in the lobby rang, and the sound of the mechanical bird diverted his attention. Is it 12 o'clock? Slowly walked out of the bedroom, and the door of the Wanchaiwu was lit up with a faint red light. The light was so dazzling that it attracted Lin Yi's attention in an instant. Huh? Someone who wants to fulfill his wish appears so early. Thinking of this, a trace of surprise appeared in his eyes, and a note slowly floated out of the red door. The weird child walked over and caught the note. Quickly came to Lin Yi and put the note in his hand. At this time, the three absent turned their heads. They had been playing poker in the store. Looking at Lin Yi curiously. They really want to know what happened this time. Looking at the note, there is a question on it. Who are you? Why did this note appear in front of me? I need an answer. These three sentences revealed a condescending tone, as if it was a person in a high position. The light of the true destiny flashed in Lin Yi's eyes, and he instantly caught the breath on the paper. It was a breath of pure light, but very deep and huge. He had never seen such a terrifying breath. Even the mysterious Taoist he saw outside the tomb of Teju of the Dao dynasty was not as terrifying as this breath. At least 3 times the difference. He was awe-inspiring, and he knew that this note seemed to be connected to some powerful existence. After thinking about it, he picked up the pen. This is a place where wishes can be fulfilled. Of course, wishes are limited to what I can do. According to the wish you put forward, you need to pay an equal price. So, what kind of wish do you want to realize? After writing, he walked to the door covered by the power of the wish shrine. After raising his hand and throwing the note into the door, Lin Yi turned around and sat in front of the French window. At this time, Brandy came over. Manager, did someone make a wish just now? Lin Yi nodded and said, no, this time someone asked a question again. Bai Lan said with some doubt on the ground, Manager, what can you get by fulfilling the wishes of these people? Because every time I feel that the things you exchange seem to be useless. Lin Yi smiled when he heard this, looked at Bai Lan and said, the power of this wish shrine needs to be accumulated day by day, and it will take a long time for a qualitative change to occur. Through this door, I can connect to different worlds. Get slaves, knowledge, life, soul, lifespan, all kinds of things. In the future, when I have collected enough things, I can even use these things to trade with others. Just like doing business, use the smallest cost to exchange for greater benefits. For example, there is a rich old man who is sick. He is dying. But he wants to live. I can sell him the 10 years of life I have, and let him buy it with 1,000 times the price. And my capital is only 1,000 gold coins. Do you think this is a huge profit? I don't even need to take tasks in the Red Lotus realm to earn a lot of gold to maintain our daily expenses. It can also improve our quality of life. This door will be the real main project in the future. Doing business with countless beings in time and space. And with the continuous upgrading of the Wanchaiwu and the continuous strengthening of the Weird Cube. The power of the Wish Shrine will become stronger and stronger, and in the future, it may be possible to select objects more quickly and efficiently. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 376. Hearing this, Brandy's face changed. He had never thought of so many magical things, but now listening to Lin Yi's words, he felt as if he was experiencing a legendary story that others would never experience. While they were talking, the door of the wish shrine spit out the note again. The strange child had already caught the note skillfully and put it on Lin Yi's desk. Absinthe and Vodka were looking at the side at the other end of the hall. Absinthe's neck was especially long, he was very interested in the world outside the door. He even had an idea in his mind. Lin Yi looked at the content on the note and frowned. Fulfill wishes. Are you a foreign god? You gods like to do this kind of thing the most to deceive faith and coordinates. Since you said that wishes can be fulfilled, then my wish is knowledge. I want knowledge that can lead to eternity. Do you have it? Lin Yi frowned when he saw this person seems to be testing, or just joking. But from the content written on this note, he seems to have regarded me as some kind of foreign god. God. Or some powerful existence. It seems that the people in this world seem to have come into contact with people in unknown time and space. Thinking of this, Lin Yi looked at the note, thought about it carefully, and then wrote a sentence. Knowledge leading to eternity, I don't have it for the time being, but if you want to extend your life, I can sell life here. After writing, Lin Yi handed the note to the weird child. The weird child turned around and threw the note into the red door. At this time, Kumak Sebastian came over stealthily. Manager, how about taking me with you next time? I'm very interested in those unknown worlds. Lin Yi glanced at him, laughed and said, do you think I don't know what you're thinking? You can't just take people to those worlds. I don't want to attract the hostility of the world. Lin Yi is not stupid. Every time he enters the unknown world through the power of the wish shrine, he can feel the rejection of the world on the other side. That is the malice of the world. Obviously, it is not the existence of this world. If you enter the unknown world at will, you will be rejected. He can enter completely because of the power of the wish shrine. He is not sure if it will cause any huge changes if he lets too many people go to the unknown time and space. After decisively rejecting Absinthe, Lin Yi looked out the French window. There was still fog there, and the specific situation outside could no longer be seen. Absinthe and Brandy looked at each other, and the two obediently returned to the side of Vodka and sat together to continue playing poker. But they hadn't sat down for a few minutes when changes occurred in the hall. A bulge appeared on the ground, and a strange head was drilling out of the ground. This head had a hideous face and a long neck, which had already pushed the bulge of the space barrier up to 1 meter high. This change quickly attracted the attention of Absinthe, Vodka, and the other two. A huge figure rushed out from the corridor. It was Whiskey, and the purple palm grabbed the hideous head that had just rushed out of the space barrier. A huge force burst out, and a strange monster with a long neck was pulled out. Its body was covered with scales like a lizard. Whiskey had already stepped on the opponent's body, and the monster with its head pinched was just struggling frantically. But facing Whiskey, who was on the third level of the enemy's immortal path, his struggle was as harmless as that of a child and an adult. Puff. Like stepping on a balloon, the terrifying force directly stepped a hole in the monster's body. Liquid rushed out of the hole and flowed all over the ground. But the monster was not dead, and its claws grabbed Whiskey's legs. Whiskey's legs were as thick as iron pillars, and his muscles were as solid as steel wires. Looking at the monster attacking him, he grabbed the monster's head with both hands at the same time and squeezed it hard. Puff. There was another muffled sound, and the monster's head was squeezed into pieces on the spot. The body trembled twice and stopped moving. Before he had time to show his power, he had already died in Whiskey's hands. Vodka looked at Whiskey's violent means, and there was a great fear in his eyes. After Whiskey killed this strange existence in 2 strokes, a trace of strange power quickly flowed into Lin Yi's body. Under the operation of the Yiling Jing, it was quickly transformed into spiritual waves. At this time, the second handprint of the handprint lotus was quickly lit up. Whiskey dragged the body to the backyard and did not stay in the lobby. Vodka and others looked at Whiskey with a trace of horror in their eyes. Since Whiskey swallowed the soul substance given to him by Lin Yi, he became more and more like a violent beast. At the same time, he also has the most basic intelligence, and is no longer a complete machine like in the past. However, Whiskey's usual task is to stay in the yard and kill any existence that intends to invade. At the same time, he does some rough work and is familiar with the things in the store. These few nights, he basically took action to deal with those alien beings that descended. As long as there is a strange existence with a physical form, it cannot escape his killing. When they encounter those formless beings from other worlds, the other three will take action. Lin Yi sat on the sofa and watched everything quietly. As the fighting power of the Yorozui became more and more sufficient, he was no longer worried about what would happen at night. At this time, the door of the wish shrine lit up again. The note appeared again, and the strange child placed it in front of Lin Yi. Lin Yi was a little surprised. This time the note responded too quickly. He picked up the note and took a look. There were only a few words written on it. Increase lifespan? I'm really interested in this. What price do you want me to pay? Seeing this, Lin Yi frowned. According to my observation, the person on the other side of this note is very powerful. Looking at his aura, he is at least a being above the ghost immortal path, but I don't know what his power system will be like. I want to get a reward from him, and it's hard to decide what to choose in exchange. I can't let him think I'm weak, nor can I let him think I'm too powerful. The most important thing is to maintain my mystery. Otherwise, it's hard to say what problems will arise. At this time, his heart suddenly moved. Maybe I can ask him if there is any way to increase the strength of his own soul. Thinking of this, he wrote a sentence. I need a substance that can increase the soul. I have a lifespan crystal here that can increase lifespan by 10 years. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 377. If you agree, we can make a deal. After writing this sentence, Lin Yi handed the note to the strange child and asked him to throw it into the gate. Next, he began to wait. He had a hunch that there might be new gains tonight. About 10 minutes later, the note appeared again. Lin Yi looked at the note in his hand, which said, if I can increase my lifespan by 10 years, I can exchange 10 units of soul matter for you. The method of use is also very simple. Swallow one piece every day, use your power to let it digest, and you can absorb the soul matter in it. Each unit of soul matter is equivalent to the entire soul of an ordinary person. Lin Yi's heart jumped when he heard this. He got a piece of soul matter from the last Earl Bailey. He gave that soul matter to Whiskey to use, and directly let the other party break through to the level of the third level of the human immortal path. Although the Earl Bailey was only a peak existence of the mortal path, he was not much stronger than ordinary people. Then the soul material of an ordinary person mentioned in this note should not be much different from that of Earl Bailey. If he can exchange 10 units of soul material for 10 years of life, then he will make a lot of money. Thinking of this, he felt a little excited. But he soon calmed down and looked at the note. After thinking for a while, he had a bold guess. It seems that the extraction of soul matter is not such a simple thing. His eyes fell on Absinthe. Absinthe, you seem to have said that the extraction of soul matter is very difficult. Absinthe heard Lin Yi's question and hurried over. It is indeed very difficult. There was once a great vengeful spirit who used hundreds of people for experiments, but failed to extract pure soul matter. It only extracted some vitality, or a mixture of spiritual soul matter. And some strange products. Lin Yi thought about it. He looked at Absinthe and said, do you think it is worthwhile to exchange 10 years of life for 10 soul substances? Each unit of soul matter is equivalent to the soul matter content of an ordinary person. Absinthe was surprised when he heard this. That must be a big profit. Soul matter is a good thing. It can directly increase the upper limit of the power of the vengeful spirit. As long as I eat a complete soul material, I can break through the current realm and step into the level of the great vengeful spirit. Boss, you must change it. Lin Yi thought about it, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. Then the price can be raised a little more. When Absinthe heard this, his eyes suddenly swelled up, and he immediately knew Lin Yi's plan, and he couldn't help but raise his thumb. Manager, you are too dark. Lin Yi glanced at him. I call this maximizing profit. And the person on the other side asked for 10 units of soul material as soon as he opened his mouth. Unit is obviously a quantitative adjective, which means that the person on the other side has studied the soul for a long time. Even the soul has formed a unit of measurement. This is not a simple research information. It is obviously a conclusion drawn after years of accumulated research. Since the other side has such in-depth research results on the soul, then we should open our mouths a little higher, and the other side should not refuse. At this point, Lin Yi wrote a sentence on the note. I want 30 units of soul material. After writing, he personally threw the note into the door and waited quietly for a reply. He had a hunch that maybe he would have a rich harvest tonight. At the same time, he had already made arrangements for this batch of soul material in his mind. Soon the note returned to the Wanchaiwu again. Look at the text on it, up to 20 units. Lin Yi smiled and wrote a sentence on the note. Then the contract is concluded. Yes/no. The note was thrown back into the door again, and it returned to the Wanchaiwu a few minutes later. When he opened it, the bottom of the note said, yes. Looking at the contract, Lin Yi nodded. The person on the other side is not trivial. If I guess correctly, the power level should be far higher than mine. If you trade with him, you must be extremely careful. If he has bad intentions during the transaction, it will not be a good thing. Thinking of this, his eyes looked at Absinthe. He waved at Absinthe. You can split into clones, right? Absinthe knew what Lin Yi wanted to do immediately after hearing this. You want my clone to go? Yes, your clone will go and make a deal with the person on the other side. If the other party has bad intentions, it will only lose a small clone, which will not pose any threat to you. Absinthe's eyebrows jumped. Each of my clones is a part of my consciousness, and it will cause some damage to me if it does. Lin Yi glanced at him. You are a summoned creature, what are you afraid of? All your damage will be repaired by the summoning album, are you kidding me? Seeing Lin Yi's gaze, Absinthe twitched the corner of his mouth, knowing that he could not escape. Tisk, manager, you are too good at ordering people around. Lin Yi glanced at him and said, if the transaction is successful, I will give you 1 unit of soul material. Let you break through the current realm and reach the realm of the great resentful spirit. Hearing this, Absinthe immediately became energetic. Really? Of course it is more valuable than real gold, and there is no need for me to lie to you. Absinthe's bitter face suddenly became as smiling as a flower. In this case, let's start, and we must complete the task. No hurry, we still have to make some preparations. As he moved his mind, the two-headed dog, the bad doctor, and the weird child all appeared in the lobby. Whiskey also came from the backyard and stood behind him. The thick corrosive smoke permeated from the body of the bad doctor, and the entire lobby was completely submerged in just a dozen seconds. The scene in the lobby could not be seen at all. Vodka came to Lin Yi's side quietly and silently, and only Brandy was still sitting in the corner of the lobby at a loss. Whiskey stood in front of the door, like a high wall, blocking any possible danger. The transaction later was bound to be very tense. If you were not careful, it would cause huge trouble. At this time, Absinthe's clone had appeared, only the size of a palm. He took the jade box containing the life beads from Lin Yi's hand. He also picked up the note. He wrote a line on the note. Contract established. The contract ignited without wind and turned into nothingness in an instant. A mysterious force connected to this clone. The house of everything I created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 378. At the same time, the other end of this power was also connected to an unknown existence. Absinthe's clone came to the gate, and his original body also stood in front of the gate. Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. The gate slowly opened, and Absinthe's clone held the jade box and jumped in at once. After he jumped in, Absinthe's original body immediately closed the gate. At this time, Absinthe's clone stood on a green grass field, and the sky was clear. He was the size of a palm, holding a jade box, and looked around curiously. Soon he noticed his target. A thatched house appeared in front of him, about 10 meters away. There was a fence around the thatched house, and inside was a small yard, where some vegetables were planted and some small animals were raised, a pastoral scenery. Absinthe's clone immediately walked towards the entrance of the small yard with his short legs. A few minutes later, he had come to the front of the fence, and his eyes looked into the courtyard. There, a man in a white robe was sitting on a grand chair, which was shaking with the grand chair. He looked very free and intoxicated in the natural world. As far as the Absinthe clone could see, except for this small courtyard, the whole world was endless grassland. Obviously, this was a special place. At this time, the grand chair slowly stopped shaking, and the man on it stood up from the chair. His eyes fell on Absinthe, and a slight fear surged in his heart, causing the Absinthe clone to tremble instinctively. And this man looked about 30 years old, with fair skin, black pupils, and a sense of holiness all over his body. He looked at Absinthe, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. "Hey, a ghost clone? It's really interesting. Little friend, are you the one who is trading with me?" When the Absinthe clone heard this voice, he suddenly became smart and woke up from his instinctive fear. He looked at the man in white with a little fear, and said in a low voice, "I am here to trade with you on behalf of my master. This jade box contains a longevity orb, which contains 10 years of life, in exchange for your soul material." As he spoke, Absinthe opened the jade box, revealing the pure white orb inside. The mysterious man in white looked at the jade box, and a hint of surprise appeared on his face. He was very surprised that he could not catch any trace of the mysterious note every time it came and went. Although he and Linyi communicated through the note and even reached a contract. But he did not think that the other party could really come up with something to extend his life. It is very likely that some dangerous existence wants to deceive him. After all, this kind of thing has happened many times in this world. The gods from other worlds came to this world through deception, or obtained something from this world. Most of the people who signed the contract had a very tragic end, being deceived and calculated by these foreign gods. But when he saw the orb in the jade box, he immediately knew that the other party did not deceive him. Because the first time he saw the white gem, he knew that it was definitely the condensation of life. Although he had never seen this thing before, his instinct, eyesight, and most importantly, his strength. All of them could feel that the things contained in this gem were extraordinary. How is it possible that life can be extracted? It involves fate, time, and the laws of the world. How can it be extracted? The white-clothed man was shocked, and countless thoughts flashed through his mind. At this time, the clone of Absinthe looked at him and said, "Contractor, our sincerity has been shown, and now it's your turn." The white-clothed man waved his right hand, and an exquisite purple pocket appeared in front of him, about the size of a palm. He threw the purple pocket in front of the Absinthe clone. "It contains 20 units of soul matter. I want to ask some questions before the transaction." Absinthe looked at the man after hearing this, and a trace of vigilance appeared in his eyes. "Don't try to get some information from me. I'm just a clone. And I'm controlled by my master. I can't tell you any information that shouldn't be disclosed. Otherwise my clone will die immediately. The man in white frowned when he heard this, and he said, "Don't worry, I don't want to ask any sensitive information, just some simple things." The clone of Absinthe thought about it, nodded and said, "You can ask, if I think I can answer you, I will answer you." The man in white smiled slightly, "Okay." At this time, the clone of Absinthe had stretched out his hands and took the purple bag in his hands. The little head looked into the purple bag, and there were about 20 dreamlike crystals in it. These crystals are multifaceted pyramids, flashing psychedelic colors like gems. A huge appetite spread out of his body, making him want to swallow these things very much. But the power from the summoning album restrained him, and he took a deep breath and suppressed the greed in his heart. Quickly seal the bag and grab it in his hand. At this time, the transaction has actually been completed. He can feel that as long as he is willing, the door of the wish shrine will appear behind him, and he can leave here at any time. However, the man in white in front of him was very terrifying. Although he was only a clone here, he could still feel the boundless power in his body. Far beyond his master Lin Yi, he did not want to anger him as much as possible. After checking the things, he looked at the man in white and said, "Okay, I've finished inspecting the goods. Now if you want to ask anything, just ask me. I have to go back and revive the owner." The man in white looked at him, thought for a moment and said, "Are there many resentful spirits like you there?" Absinthe thought for a while and said, "There is no shortage, especially since there have been a lot of evil spirits recently." The man in white frowned when he heard this. Did they suddenly start to appear in large numbers? Absinthe nodded and said, "Yes, because the world has changed and the energy has become active. There are more and more resentful spirits." When the man in white heard this, his expression became serious. The world is resurrected, and the resentful spirits appear. This means that there should be very few resentful spirits in your world before this. There are very few people who even have power, right? Absinthe's clone didn't refute when he heard this, and said calmly, "You guessed it right, it's exactly what you said." The man in white suddenly fell silent when he heard this. Are there some very strange beings there? You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 379. Some beings that came from unknown time and space, as well as some vengeful spirits, will be invaded by mysterious forces and become very strange, similar to these invading beings. When Absinthe heard this, his eyes suddenly widened and he looked at the man in white. The other party was obviously talking about strange beings. And the other party was able to say such things. Obviously he had seen strange beings and perhaps knew the details of these things. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow. Thinking of this, he suddenly said, "Yes, those things are called strange existences by us, and they come from other worlds. Some can corrode the resentful spirits and make them undergo strange changes. Some others come directly from the unknown world. From your tone, it seems that you know these things. What? Are there any problems with them?" When the man in white heard this, he immediately looked at Absinthe with an unfortunate look. "I do know what those things are. But I only know roughly. I can only give you one piece of advice: your world is hopeless and is destined to perish. When these strange existences appear in any world, it means that this world is about to perish. Now we have nothing to talk about. The transaction is completed." As he said, the man in white waved his hand, and the jade box on the ground was closed and flew into his hand at the same time. Then he turned and walked to his old chair, lying directly on it, and no longer cared about Absinthe's clone. Absinthe looked strange and quickly left the fenced courtyard. He carried the purple cloth bag and quickly left here. After about 100 meters, a red gate appeared in front of him. He took a step and rushed into the gate. At this time, the man in white in the fenced courtyard looked here. When he noticed the red gate, his brows furrowed tightly. Is this thing interesting? The owner behind this dared to use things. He is really ignorant and fearless. You are dead. Things are things that devour everything. He shook his head slightly, as if he had seen the future of the owner of the gate, slowly closed his eyes, and fell into his own world. In the Wanchi house, Absinthe's clone jumped out of the gate carrying a bag of purple cloth. Then Absinthe quickly closed the door, very vigilant. When the clone returned, Absinthe immediately reached out and grabbed the clone and the purple bag. The clone merged into his body like water, and the memory of the other side was also immediately merged into the main body, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. And Lin Yi also immediately noticed the scene in the other side's memory. The appearance of strange existences is destined to destroy our world. These strange existences are indeed problematic. The person on the other side obviously knows a lot about this kind of thing, otherwise he wouldn't say that. Unfortunately, the current Wanchai seems to be unable to travel across boundaries. I must kill more strange existences to keep the Wanchai evolving. Inexplicably, a sense of urgency rose in his heart, and he didn't want to be buried with the Red Lotus realm. Shaking his head slightly, he took the purple bag from Absinthe's hand. After opening it, he saw 20 dream-like soul material crystals. He took one out of the crystals at random and threw it to Absinthe. This is your reward. After Absinthe took the crystal, his face was full of smiles. And he couldn't wait to swallow it. Pure power permeated from his body and instantly swept his whole body. His face showed great satisfaction and pleasure, as if he was enjoying the happiest thing in the world. His whole body was twisting strangely, and countless black smoke permeated from his body, which was extremely rich in resentment. These resentments wrapped him, and he turned into an illusory black sphere. He was in a state of evolution. When his transformation was completed, it was the time for him to step into the great resentful spirit. Lin Yi's eyes fell on the two-headed dog, the weird child and the bad doctor. They were all weird beings who followed him through life and death. If it weren't for their help, he might have died a long time ago. Continue to take out 3 soul substances from the purple cloth bag and throw them to them. He wanted all his summons to reach the extreme combat power of the 3rd level of the human immortal way. He needs to have the most solid backing. Before he becomes completely strong, the number of strong people determines his foundation. He will spare no effort to increase the combat power of the Wanchai Wu. After the two-headed dog, the bad doctor, and the weird child took over the soul crystals, they swallowed them all directly. The majestic power surged in their bodies, and the weird power was shaking wildly. Their aura was changing rapidly. Lin Yi watched this scene quietly, waiting for the final result. Time passed by minute, and soon 30 minutes passed. Whether it was Absinthe, the two-headed dog, or the bad doctor, their evolution had all ended. At this time, their appearance did not change, but their auras were all greatly improved. Absinthe became more real, not as illusory as before, and his body was no longer so tattered, as if he had completely returned to the state of being a human in the past. His body was filled with a strong resentment, like a huge ice. Just standing there, the air in the entire lobby seemed to have become gloomy. The auras of the 3 strange summons, including Bad Doctor, had changed dramatically. Countless strange powers permeated their bodies, making them exude a more dangerous aura. They had all reached the combat power of the 2nd level of the enemy immortal. However, their auras were not very stable and were still changing slightly. Obviously, they still needed time to adapt to the skyrocketing power. Strange beings, resentful spirits, and humans were different. Their improvement was not only the quality of their power, but also the quantity. The cultivation path of humans basically changed in quality. The improvement in quality was an extraordinary improvement. Although the total amount of essence would not change much, the change in pure quality should not be underestimated. Comparing the differences between strange beings, resentful spirits, and humans at the same level of combat power, Lin Yi made a keen discovery. The power of strange beings and vengeful spirits is almost twice that of human immortal practitioners in terms of quantity, but the quality is much worse. Obviously, the difference between these strange beings, vengeful spirits, and humans begins here. Thinking about the dried bat-winged monster that appeared in the courtyard last time, it is basically equivalent to the existence of ghost immortals. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 380. However, as Lin Yi, who had just stepped into the threshold of the ghost immortal path, he did not feel that the ghost immortal path was much stronger than the human immortal path. The only difference was that the ghost immortal path condensed a spiritual body that was suspected to be a soul, and now he had not discovered the role of this soul. He slowly raised his right hand, and his will was concentrated on the suspected soul in his mind. A wisp of invisible thing flowed out from it. It quickly merged into his own essence and then gathered on his right hand. He could feel that this essence that was integrated with the power of the soul had some wonderful changes. It was a feeling that he could control it at will. The essence slowly diffused from his hand and turned into a ball the size of a finger. Lin Yi was surprised to find that the power flowing out of his soul was always connected with this ball of essence. This ball of essence floating in his palm seemed to be connected by a silk thread, dancing with his will. He thought, in other words, the ghost immortal Dao enhances the control of the essence. Thus, the essence becomes more flexible and changeable. By analogy, the control of the magic weapon may also be affected. When he thought about the time when he controlled the earth seal in the past, it was basically straightforward. Once it was used, it was difficult to have a huge change. But if it is controlled by the power of the soul, the control of the earth seal will become very flexible as the flying sword in the legend. He looked carefully at this group of essence, and it was still undergoing some subtle changes. The wisps of energy in the void were merging into this group of essence. They were all the same source and nature as this group of essence, which increased the power of his essence by at least 1/10. That is to say, after incorporating the power of the soul, the essence can also draw power from the outside world to increase its own power. Is this the combat power after the combination of the ghost immortal path and the human immortal path? But the strange existence is different from the vengeful spirits. They seem to directly and purely increase their own power limit, surpassing the human cultivation path of the same level by nearly times the volume. Simply put, one is based on quality and skills, and the other is based on pure volume crushing. At least this is the case at the level of the ghost immortal path and below. I don't know if the existence above the ghost immortal path is also like this. Countless thoughts flashed through his mind, and he had a deeper understanding of the cultivation path and strange existence. It was already 4 or 5 in the morning, and the fog in the lobby dissipated a lot. Obviously, there was a high probability that nothing would happen today. Lin Yi looked at the brandy and vodka. It's almost time, everyone go and rest, we have to get up and open the store at 8:00. Because the people in the store are all practitioners, or vengeful spirits, they basically don't need to sleep. At most, they can recover to their peak state by meditating for 2 or 3 hours. Practicing is a time to restore energy better than sleeping. It was soon morning, and everyone had started to prepare for the new day after practicing. Lin Yi sat in his seat, watching the morning news, with a hint of comfort in his eyes. The chaos in the Red Lotus realm has gradually calmed down, and there is almost no news about what happened in the north. Obviously, the news was blocked at the first time, and no news would leak out except for the top leaders and insiders. The news is reporting the cleaning of the wild safety range in various cities. The strange existence is being cleaned up quickly, and all areas involving farmland and food are the first places to deal with. As for many uninhabited places in the primeval forest, no one has asked about it for the time being. Now the first goal of the Red Alliance Empire is to ensure the safety of transportation and food. In addition, the Empire has issued many bounties, inviting civilian warriors to form teams to clean up strange objects in exchange for a large amount of funds. The news is also mixed with news about the enrollment of various martial arts schools. From the news, the whole world is still calm, and there is no unmanageable situation. Lin Yi analyzed the news and found that the situation in the empire is generally stable and has not been out of control. But he was sure that this was just the news reported on the surface. According to his senses of clearing those strange places outside Honglian City some time ago, he deeply knew the power of those strange existences. Honglian City had to use a large number of troops and modern weapons to deal a fatal blow to them. It was hard to imagine what would happen to ordinary villages and towns under the siege of such strange existences. But what was strange was that there was never any news about villages and towns in the news. Although Honglian City had issued an order at the beginning to let the people in the villages and towns gather in nearby cities. But this takes time and process. On the night of the first day, those villages and towns could only face the strange existences by themselves, and there would be no rescue force. Only those who could survive the first night could survive. But if you think about it, you will understand that such things cannot be broadcast in the news, otherwise it will cause widespread chaos, which is not good. After breakfast, Lin Yi searched the internet. Now because of the appearance of strange existences, many transit stations in the outside world have been affected. There are often network outages, which affects the connection between various places. However, the network has been recovering rapidly in the past few days. It is obvious that the Red Lotus Empire is using its backup means to restore the network. Took a deep breath, and a trace of solemnity appeared in his eyes. From time to time, some gossips can be seen on the internet, such as a village or a town that has completely lost contact, and a student studying abroad can no longer contact his hometown. In particular, many students are in fear, so they will ask what is going on online or seek help. This is destined to be a disaster with a very wide impact. For the future of the Red Lotus Empire, Lin Yi felt a shadow. Thinking of the words of the mysterious existence last night, he had more guesses about the weird existence. I am afraid that weird existences will become more and more frequent in the future. In the end, it may really be like what the mysterious existence said, and the Red Lotus realm will inevitably go to destruction. Seeing the micro, he can roughly see the final result of each city in the Red Lotus realm from the results of those villages and towns. If weird existences continue to appear, the armed forces of the city will eventually be exhausted. Although technology has brought humans powerful combat capabilities, all of this requires material support. Many villages and towns are the origins of materials. These raw minerals need to be processed before they can be produced in various industrial cities and converted into weapons and ammunition, etc.